Hello, my name is Claudia Gustav, and the movie I'm doing is Forrest Gump. This assignment is being submitted to Ms. McCall on May 6, 2018. Introduction to Communication. Now, the characters are Forrest Gump, who is the main character, Mrs. Gump, who's the supporting character, Jenny Curran, who you'll see as the childhood friend, and she's a supporting actress and also becomes a wife at the end. You will also see Lieutenant Dan, or hear about Lieutenant Dan. He's a military sergeant, lieutenant, and military friend. And also Bubba, who's really not really in the movie for a long time. Like he's in there for like a good 10 to 20 minutes out of the scripts. But he is a military friend. The settings of Forrest Gump is an all-white American. Forrest Gump was born in Greensboro, Alabama, where most of his significance started by struggling with being accepted into public school due to having a lower IQ of 75. However, his mother did make it possible for him by sacrificing her well-being. You'll notice in the movie that she actually sacrifices by actually sleeping with the principal in order for her son to actually get the best education that he can get, so that he won't be treated any differently. He also suffered from a crooked spine that caused him to wear braces throughout his time to support his back. However, his legs were actually really strong. He also met his lifelong childhood friend in Greensboro, Alabama, who is Jenny. However, he was bullied a lot because he looked differently. He had braces on and his IQ wasn't high, so he seemed a little slow in certain things or having comebacks. He takes what you say to him literally. So that's what makes it a little funny about Forrest Gump. He travels the world and has done a lot of influential and inspiring things through his childhood-like behavior, by going to Vietnam, the war, saving lives, being honored by the president, and becoming like the football star of his high school. You will see on this scene where he actually is being bullied and he starts to run and the braces comes off. His culture and identity, he was an all-American white male. It shows normative what goes on by the rules and regulations. Communications, gesture, facial expression do tell a lot, especially for him, because when you're telling him something, his facial expressions always seem blank, but his gestures after you tell him something is always automatic, and that's what makes Forrest Gump a little different, but his significance in what he says is so important. Body language and distance is an American body distance or arm length and gives the person some personal space. However, in the movie of Forrest Gump, there are a lot of times you will see where Lieutenant Dan violates his space. But you see that a lot in the army where they get up in your face and they tell you, "Oh, salute," and they say, "Sir, yes, sir." So usually you don't see a lot of personal space when it comes to being in the army. However, you do see a lot of personal space around when he's just in America. Perception. His mother, Miss Gump, was a great inspiration in his life. As you can see where in the movie, any quote or anything that he had to do in his life, it was all about what his mother said and how she said it. So he took that experience and made him very confident to never let people make him feel any different. And his perception of himself, he wasn't any different from anybody. So he was a great storyteller. And a great quote that his mother says that a lot of people say to this day, life is like a box of chocolate. You never know what you're going to get. Oops. Perception of self, like I said. Forrest Gump never seen himself as disabled or disadvantaged. He always was very optimistic through his childlike behavior and what was going on in his life. His childhood love, Jenny, which is the supporting actress. She also is a childhood friend who helped him a lot in certain ways. However, she was kind of leading a reckless life for herself. He wanted her to see that life was more than that. He would run to get through his issues because the knowledge he had gotten her by wanting him to be in love with her. However, she could never give him the same love back. Listening skills. This is Bubba right here, one of his military friends. Nonverbal. With him sitting on the stool and talking to everyone about his stories that he has done throughout his whole life and experience, people was actually actively listening to all of his stories because they were fairly interesting. Their facial gesture would either show disapproval or crying or interesting expressions as he told his stories. This significance on the bench was very important because people could have just thought, oh, this man is crazy, like he just got so much stories to tell, but people actually listened and they felt his pain and understood where he was coming from. The emotional communication that was with Jenny and Forrest in one of the scenes. The nonverbal was very affected because of the gesture goes along with the words. Sometimes body language could be different than words. For example, you state you're excited to go to the park, but facial expressions and body doesn't seem to do the same. So emotional communication can be a little rarely. Forrest's nonverbal language was empathetic towards Jenny when she fell to the floor after throwing rocks and started crying. You see in one of the scenes in the movie where as Jenny was his childhood friend and it seemed like I think she was being either verbally or physically abused as a child. So she really hated that house. Jenny had evaluated what Forrest said to her. Every time he would say for her to stay in Greensboro, Alabama. And she ended up falling in love with him at the end. The interpersonal communication with Forrest and Lieutenant Dan or Jenny was used a lot. Trouble understanding what they truly meant. They would sometimes have to break down information for him. For example, one scene when school was being integrated with black and whites, because it did look like that time they were going through the civil rights and the schools were being integrated. So he asked one of the fellow classmates, "What's going on?" And the classmate said, "The raccoons are coming into school." And Forrest exclaimed, "Raccoons?" He's thinking literally. But it was just a phrase the classmate was using for the black students entering the school. So that was very, very important because that's how he actually understands, because it's like he's like a 4-year-old where you have to use simple sentence to make him understand where you're coming from. Like going into depth would actually confuse him. So, and with him and Bubba did unfortunately died in the movie because in Vietnam he was shot. But Bubba seemed like he was at the same level with Forrest, making the communication, the interpersonal communication, and like it wasn't a disadvantage because they lean in on each other. And number 12, conflict management. Forrest was a lot more passive aggressive. He had a breaking point when things got to him, so he could take all the quotes from everyone in his life and acted on it, which was running. So anything that he was going through, he ran so that he can get through his thoughts, or just mesmerizing about certain conflict. He was very stern and he knew exactly what he wanted. And this is the scene where he actually runs. And he's just running, and he runs for 3 years. And this scene was very significant in this movie because it shows all the interpersonal things that has gone through the scenes, and he just wants to like let go of those things. So that was a very important scene. And this is my reference. And I hope that you guys liked it.